on, ladies and gentlemen? Christian Hanna Horror here today, and here we are. We're in the early 90s. Matter of fact, we're on 1991. This is going to be the top 5 horror movies of 1991. This list was hard to compile. It was just, we're in a very big transitional period for horror. We're entering, what's really like the golden era of the rental store horror movie where, cinemas aren't that important in the realm of horror and horror movies in this era, but there were still some incredible movies that came out. So without further ado, let's get started and jump right into our top 5 horror movies of 1991. Shout out to Terror Threads with this really cool Puppet Master shirt featuring Torch on it. Really love this shirt. All right, so coming in at number 5 for me is actually going to be, it gets a little bit of hate, but it's not really a hated movie in the same sense. That is Child's Play 3. Child's Play 3 was a very big transition in the Child's Play franchise in the sense that this movie came out a mere 9 months after Child's Play 2. And what was really interesting about Child's Play 3 was the idea to fast forward a whole lot and make this movie take place in Andy's teen years, and he's in a boot camp school or a military school, if you will. But given that, I actually really enjoyed the cast of this movie. I really enjoyed the story of this movie, and makeup-wise and special effect-wise, I think Chucky is almost at his best as far as mechanics go. And, some of the funniest lines are from 3. You've got some really great stuff, especially when he goes to kill I guess he was more or less like the drill sergeant of the school, the old man in that room where they've got all the replicas and that glass case of like the whole, military army deal under the glass case, and Chucky pops out at him and he has a heart attack. Instead of Chucky killing him, and his famous line, "You gotta be," some really, really funny stuff in Child's Play 3. And it gets really interesting. One of the coolest scenes in the franchise, in my opinion, was definitely the scene at the end of the roller coaster where Chucky's face gets cut off and the makeup effects for that. Fantastic stuff. So, I'm not going to say Child's Play 3 is the best in the series. I believe 2 is, but Child's Play 3 is a fantastic entry in the series, and it's the last real classic Child's Play movie, in my opinion, although Bride of Chucky is still pretty good. Coming in at number 4 is actually going to be Freddys Dead, The Final Nightmare, or whatever it's called. Freddys Dead. Freddys Dead is definitely a goofier horror movie. It's not serious. It's not Freddy from the original. But for everything that you take away from that, Freddys Dead still keeps me entertained. You've got a really interesting cast of characters. And, Freddys Dead, it has a lot of classic things to me that mean a lot to me. For instance, that opening sequence with the Goo Goo Dolls song, I'm Awake Now. I love that song. The soundtrack to Freddys Dead is very classic in my opinion. I really enjoy the soundtrack to Freddys Dead. Freddy is not at his best in this movie, but Freddy is still Freddy in this movie in the sense that it's Robert Englund continuing this character to another level that hadn't been done yet, where he's extremely goofy. I think they even go on to say that this movie is really replicant of a Looney Tunes cartoon. It's silly, it's goofy, I'm not going to deny that one bit, but it's still a classic horror movie in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, and Freddys Dead is still enjoyable to me. I wish they would have taken it in a different direction, but I appreciate it for what it is, and it's still a pretty fun movie to sit back and enjoy too. So number 4 is Freddys Dead for me. Number 3 is actually going to be, these guys right here, and that's going to be Puppet Master 3, Toulon's Revenge. For a movie to take place in the middle of the 1900s and to be in Germany, it's everything that seems boring to me, the middle of the 1900s, for instance, and taking place in Germany. But Toulon's Revenge was, the most daring movie from the Puppet Master series, and 3 being the best sequel out of the bunch, with the original being the best in my opinion. Toulon is a puppet master, no pun intended, in this era in Germany, and his wife gets killed. He starts to really want to take revenge on this. The secret of how he animates these puppets is coming to life. The real thing that's so great about Puppet Master 3 is 2 things. First off, the introduction of Six Shooter, one of the coolest puppets in the franchise, and the gore in the movie. There's some absolutely fantastic kills in this. There's a chest-bursting scene with Tunneler that is on par with any chest-bursting scene I've ever seen in a horror movie. It's great stuff, And, you know, it's strange. You know, I didn't realize this till the end of the movie, and it really didn't hit me. I was like, if this movie's taking place in Germany, why is everything in American? So, excuse me. Why is everything in American? I sound like a country. Well, why are you speaking American? Why are they speaking English and not German? And then Sydney was like, well, think about it. Like, what would be more annoying, having to read subtitles with everybody speaking German, or just forget about it taking place in Germany while they're speaking English? I was like, yeah. So I really appreciate Full Moon doing that. Call it what you want to, but I see it as them saying, look, subtitles are boring. I know you guys want to read anything, watch a movie, so we're just going to make everybody speak English. So, but Puppet Master 3 is one of the really great classic Puppet Master entries in the franchise, and Tu Lon's Revenge is fantastic. Highly recommend Tu Lon's Revenge. Okay, we're down to the last two. Number 2 in my list of 1991 is going to be a Wes Craven film, and that is going to be The People Under the Stairs. Definitely one of his best 90s horror movies. The People Under the Stairs, this really interesting story about this couple that have this daughter and this horrifying group of people living under the house, and they're like the town nuts, if you will. And there's like really interesting urban culture to this, and the oppression of black people and how they have to fight to survive in this environment. And, you know, it is somewhat of it's like maybe like a fraction of a political statement in this, but I really like that. Excuse me, I really like that Wes was able to take those elements into this movie, and it's actually a really good horror movie. You know, it almost seems like it's more of like a thriller, so to speak, but it's a very classic, really cool movie from Wes Craven. You've got some really cool makeup effects in this. The house that this couple has is really haunting. It's like the Burbs house on steroids. It's just very creepy. It's very dark and dismal, and it's all about how this young boy, and it's either his uncle, or it's not his dad, it's either his uncle or his cousin or something. They're trying to break into the house to get jewelry, to get this and that, to get whatever, and then they get entrapped in the house when the couple comes back home, and then the young boy learns about these people being held captive in this house. It's a really interesting movie, a really good movie from Wes Craven, period. As a matter of fact, I don't want to say it's his best movie of the 90s. We may talk about that later in this series, but definitely one of his best movies, period, of the 1990s. That is People Under the Stairs, a great little movie. So that's my number 2. So let me give you guys some recommendations, honorable mentions. I want to talk about a movie called Body Parts. I want to talk about a movie called Sometimes They Come Back. I want to talk about a movie called Pit and the Pendulum. I want to talk about a movie called Critters 3. And I want to give a really big shout out to a movie. I absolutely adore this movie, but it's not really a horror movie, so it's not on this list, period. But I love this movie. That is a movie called Nothing But Trouble with Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd. It's a cult movie. You either know about this movie and love it, or you know about it and haven't seen it, or you've seen it and just think it's terrible. It's one of those polarizing movies it's like a comedy, but it's a special makeup effects kind of comedy with just a tinge of horror in it. But it's a cult movie that you either love or don't. But if you haven't seen Nothing But Trouble, it's one of those crazy movies. Highly recommend seeing Nothing But Trouble. You guys check that out. Okay, number 1, if there was any question about it, what I consider to be, you know, probably the greatest horror movie of the 1990s, period. And emphasis on the word horror. I'm sick of, you know, the mainstream saying this is a psychological thriller. It's a horror movie, for goodness sake. That is Silence of the Lambs. That's right, a movie that had everything going against it. Everybody was a third and fourth choice. The director wasn't supposed to be the first choice. Anthony Hopkins was not the first choice. Just so much stuff going against it, and it's one of the most enduring, incredible movies ever made, period. It was either the Golden Globe or the Oscars. Whatever it was, it swept it, and it was one of the only times a horror movie has ever done that. And I think it was maybe the last. Maybe I know Shape of Water did really good, but, you know, Silence of the Lambs was just so good it could not be denied. So I just think that's incredible. So I want to give a shout out and a love and appreciation to that movie, Silence of the Lambs. But it's definitely one of the greatest movies ever made, period. One of the greatest characters, evil villains, Dr. Lecter, period, ever made. Some of the just haunting, incredible stuff. It's magic on screen. It truly is magic on screen. So that's my top 5 for 1991. An interesting year because, you know, you've got some huge box office movies like Silence of the Lambs, you know, like, you know, what have you. But then you've also got these direct-to-video movies. Like I said, we're in an interesting time in horror because we're really into, you know, what is considered the golden years of the full moon era, but we're also experiencing some of these movies like Silence of the Lambs that just come out of nowhere and just sweep the globe, sweep the nation. So, interesting year for horror, but 1992 is coming up next. Please give me your top 5 at the bottom of this video in the comment section. Let me know which movies you love. Please be sure to give this video a like and give this video a comment. That way I can spread these videos more and more people can see them. Until next time, this is Christian Hanna Horror, and get ready for 1992.